Hey, what is going on YouTube? Welcome back to Team VRY, and today we're going to take a look at the Pixel 7a. I've had it with me for quite some time now, and I just want to share my thoughts in this video. Let's get started. Alright, so after spending some time with the Pixel 7a, using it daily as my main Android device, using its camera, getting to know its performance, I think that I've spent enough time with the phone to give some key observations about its performance. Now, I do have some earlier Pixel 7a videos that you can check in this channel, and I will drop some links in the description below. And yeah, with that said, let's get to the video. Right, so first off, I want to talk about the pros of this phone. Like, what did Google do to make the Pixel 7a a more improved experience over the Pixel 6a and the Pixel 6? Now, we do get some really nice hardware upgrades, such as the 90Hz refresh rate. It's about time that we finally got it on the Pixel A series. Now, I wasn't really bothered by the 60Hz refresh rate on the Pixel 6a, but finally having access to a much smoother refresh rate on the 7a is indeed a nice addition to the overall user experience and really gives it a justification of an upgrade over the older A series model. Of course, we now also get Face Unlock, which is a nice bonus, and it does work well for me most of the time as a quicker alternative to the fingerprint scanner. But yeah, the Face Unlock works similarly to the Pixel 7. I think it's about the same accuracy and performance speed, and I haven't really had any issues with it, unless of course when using the phone in darker environments. Of course, we get a new and updated design. It incorporates some visual elements found on the Pixel 7 series, such as the aluminum camera bar. Although one thing to consider is that the camera bar on the 7a is a separate piece. Now, the separate strip is also made of aluminum, although of course the phone does stick with a glossy plastic back as on the Pixel 6a, and I wish that we could have gotten Gorilla Glass 3 on the rear panels at least. But again, given the price of the phone, Google had to cut back on some corners. Now, another big upgrade, of course, is the Tensor G2 chip inside the phone. And comparing this to the first generation Tensor chip on the Pixel 6a and the Pixel 6, it does come with a slight performance boost. And while it's not on par with more powerful chipsets like the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, it can hold its own for daily usage. Most games on the Play Store will have no problem running on the phone, and it does provide an overall smoother experience, especially when you compare the 7a to older Pixel models. And yeah, like I said, Google has packed a lot of upgrades into this phone, and this of course includes the camera. We now get a 64 megapixel camera on the Pixel 7a. Now, this comes with a 13 megapixel ultra-wide lens and a 13 megapixel front-facing camera. But yeah, the main highlight of the camera hardware on this phone is the 64 megapixel sensor. Now, it's nice that we finally got to move away from the older 12 megapixel sensor that Google has used on several Pixel models. And the addition of a larger sensor means that you'll get more detail in your shots, as well as some improvements to video quality. And while megapixel count really isn't everything when it comes to camera performance, it is of course a much welcome upgrade in terms of hardware. Of course, speaking about the camera, the 7a also comes with the newer camera software features on the 7 series. We now finally get features such as face unblur, in addition to the usual Google suite of camera functions like portrait mode, long exposure, night sight, and other stuff like that. One thing to note, however, is that the phone does not come with the cinematic video mode that we get on the Pixel 7 and the 7 Pro, which is pretty interesting given that it comes with a lot of the same hardware that's found on the base model Pixel 7. And yeah, as far as hardware upgrades go, the phone is a terrific device, especially considering what we got on the Pixel 6a from last year. Now, in terms of user experience, I have to say that it's kind of similar to the Pixel 7 in both a good and a bad way. It's overall a much more fluid experience. The Tensor G2 and the 8GB of RAM work tremendously well together in providing a more seamless day-to-day usage experience. And yeah, if you're upgrading from a much older Pixel A series model like the 4a or the 4a 5G, then the 7a will be better in several key aspects. Now, of course, during my time using it, initially I did have some complaints about the battery endurance. I used to get maybe only 3.5 to 4 hours of screen on time, but now I'm averaging maybe 5 hours and sometimes maybe even almost 6 hours of screen on time on a daily basis. Now, this is of course thanks in part to the adaptive battery feature on the Pixel phones. And yeah, it's nice to see some improvements. And yeah, overall, it's a pretty reliable device, with the exception of some early battery complaints. I think that after a while, the device is more stable compared to when I first started using it. Now, with all that being said, there is of course a reason that the Pixel 7a doesn't really count as a full replacement for the Pixel 7. While it does blur the lines in terms of what a flagship phone and a mid-range phone can do, there are of course some caveats to consider if you're thinking about getting this phone. We do have the slower battery charging. Now, this does come with both wired and wireless charging, but both options are really slow, especially when compared to flagship Pixels like the Pixel 7 and even the Pixel 6. The 7a charges significantly slower, and it's not really much of an improvement over the slow charging speeds that we found on the Pixel 6a. You'll really have to be patient with the battery charging on the 7a, and if you're looking for an experience like what would you get on an Oppo or OnePlus phone or any of these Xiaomi phones with insane charging speeds, then of course you're not going to find it here, and yeah, it's one thing to consider. Now, of course, since we're talking about battery, I should mention that the heating issue is mostly still present on the 7a. Now, Google has addressed the heating issues of the Pixel phones with a software update, and this has resulted in some improvements on my device. It doesn't heat as much as the Pixel 7 did when I was using that phone. It still tends to get warm, especially if you're using data outdoors with 5G, brightness set to the max, and navigation apps, especially if you're going around town. That's been one of my main complaints about the phone. But as I mentioned before, there has been some improvement with thermal management, so that is at least nice to see. And in terms of fingerprint biometrics, the phone doesn't really improve much on the experience that we got on the Pixel 6a and the 6. It's still not as fast as an ultrasonic fingerprint scanner, and while it has worked for me consistently both with and without a screen protector, it's still a bit slower than what you get on more expensive premium flagship phones. Now, probably the last complaint that I have with this phone is the unimpressive outdoor visibility. Now, the screen does get bright, but if you're expecting flagship levels of outdoor brightness and visibility with the Pixel 7a, then you're going to be disappointed in that regard. It's just enough so that you can see what's on your screen, but especially under direct sunlight, then you're going to struggle a bit with the display on the Pixel 7a. But yeah, like I said, Google had to cut some corners on this phone to bring down the price, unfortunately. Right, so now that we've covered those things, if you're looking to get into the Pixel ecosystem and maybe you're on the hunt for a device with all the essential Pixel features, then of course the Pixel 7a is a nice entry point as far as Google smartphones go. Of course, if you're looking to get into the Pixel ecosystem at a much more affordable price, then the 6a or maybe even the 6 is the way to go. I mean, at around $500, the Pixel 7a isn't exactly cheap, so I would definitely suggest looking for promos or trade-ins. Maybe you have a really old phone that you're willing to let go. But yeah, at full price, the Pixel 7a is admittedly pretty expensive still, and if you can get a good deal for it, then you've got a banger of a phone. Alright guys, so that does it for this video. Thanks a lot for watching. If you enjoyed this video, check out our other Pixel videos here on TeamVRY, as well as our other Android videos. Don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments below about the Pixel 7a. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.